Welcome to The Debate. Today we're diving into the incredible global rise of Vietnamese coffee. It's a beverage that's really captured the world's attention, and it's defined by a really unique combination of things. Dark roasted Robusta beans, the very slow, almost meditative phin filter brewing method, and of course that key addition of sweetened condensed milk. It's just a profoundly singular experience.
And that singular experience has now moved well beyond specialty cafes and really into the world of major global trade. So the critical challenge for the industry, and I think for every importer looking at this, is this. Can the very precise, almost ritualistic requirements that define authentic Vietnamese coffee actually translate into a high-volume, globally scalable FMCG or fast-moving consumer goods wholesale product without, completely gutting the character and flavor that consumers are asking for in the first place?
That is the absolute central question. And I'll be arguing that the culinary authenticity, the specific ingredients, the slow brewing ritual, is paramount. Preserving this is, well, it's non-negotiable, even if it creates some friction for mass market scalability. If you compromise here, you lose the product's soul.
And I'm coming at this from let's say, a different angle. Global market viability, it requires smart productization. It requires adaptation. The real value of Vietnamese coffee, especially for a wholesale buyer, lies in its potential as a robust, high-demand SKU, a stock-keeping unit. And that means you have to prioritize flexibility over, a strict, ritualistic adherence. You capture the essence, but you streamline the process.
My whole position really centers on this idea that the unique flavor profile is completely inseparable from its traditional preparation. I mean, if we start compromising the steps, we're just turning a signature cultural experience into a generic, bitter commodity. The authenticity comes from this delicate harmony of factors. So first you have the foundation, dark roasted Robusta beans, not Arabica. This is so crucial for that bold, earthy flavor, the subtle chocolate notes, and that really pronounced bitter backbone. You need that intensity because of what comes next.
An intensity that makes it marketable, of course.
Exactly. Second, the phin filter method. That slow drip process is fundamental because it's all about the extraction rate. It forces a much longer contact time between the water and the ground, which gives you that concentrated brew with its signature thick, syrupy consistency. It requires a specific medium to medium coarse grind and water that has to be in a very narrow range, like 195 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit. And third, the sweetened condensed milk. You have to use enough, maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons, to get that perfect balance without thinning out the coffee's body. So that 4 to 6 minute brewing time, including the critical 20 to 45 second bloom, these aren't just inefficient steps. They are essential for achieving the deep flavors that define the entire drink.
Okay, hold on a second. I agree that authenticity is the hook. It's what drives the initial demand. But sustainable export success depends on translating that authentic experience into reliable, high-volume products that meet the demands of international logistics and, this is the key, consumer convenience. We just can't ignore the practicalities for a wholesale buyer.
But that's a huge challenge. Are you saying logistics should trump flavor?
No, I'm saying it informs how you package the flavor. The slow ritual of the phin filter, as culturally significant as it is, presents a real operational hurdle. I mean, how many global consumers are going to dedicate 6 minutes every single morning to a manual gravity drip? Businesses require easily prepared, consistent SKUs for global scale. We're talking about instant coffee, pre-mixed sachets, ready-to-drink cans. The good news is that the core ingredients, the Robusta beans, the high caffeine, the condensed milk, are fantastic wholesale commodities on their own. The goal for export isn't to demand every customer become a home barista. The goal is to capture the essence of that boldness and sweetness in formats that work for global distribution. And we know this works. Just look at the reach of instant coffee brands like Trunwin G7. They completely bypassed the ritual, but have found enormous success delivering a recognizable flavor profile.
That's a compelling point about the instant market, but let's go back to the phin filter itself. I still maintain that the flavor extraction and that syrupy texture are just inextricably linked to the slow drip mechanism. The thickness of the final drink is what makes it so different. It's not just strong, it's viscous. The phin forces that extended contact time you need to pull out the maximum dissolved solids, creating that, luxurious mouthfeel. If we move away from that, we lose the texture completely. The phin isn't just a cup, it's the cornerstone of the whole flavor profile because it dictates extraction and texture.
I'm sorry, I just don't buy that one specific device is the necessary cornerstone for a global commodity. If the phin are truly non-negotiable, then the massive growth we're seeing in convenience-based Vietnamese coffee products simply wouldn't exist. The market itself is proving that consumers are happy to trade the ritual for a reliable taste and convenience. A wholesale buyer's number one concern is guaranteed flavor consistency at scale and shelf stability, not brewing time. I mean, how can you guarantee the quality of millions of cups brewed by novices at home versus the kind of consistency you get from a controlled manufacturing process? The value is in the bold taste from the bean blend, not the 6 minutes of waiting.
But consistency at the expense of texture is a poor trade. Instant varieties, yes, they capture the sweet and robust flavor notes, but they just can't replicate that syrupy, concentrated body. The strength you get from pulling 14 or 16 grams of coffee through a controlled drip, sometimes even using a little gravity press, it cannot be matched by faster methods like a standard home coffee machine without seriously compromising the density of the final drink. A buyer who is interested in the premium, authentic experience has to understand they're selling a specific method, or the product will just feel like a letdown compared to what people get in a real cafe.
But this is where you frame the product intelligently for the wholesale buyer. You have to accept that there will be different tiers of SKUs. We can absolutely sell the fridge and filters themselves and the specific grounds for them, with great instructions for the traditional ritual. That's perfect for the specialized gourmet market. But for the mass market, the goal is replicating the bold taste using methods that already exist in people's kitchens, like, say, optimized grounds for a mocha pot, or certain espresso machines that can handle that dark Robusta profile. We're selling the result, that flavor synergy, not the specific piece of equipment.
Okay, let's pivot to ingredients, because this is where that productization risk becomes really acute. The specific dark roasted Robusta forward profile is crucial. It has to have a base that can hold its own against the intense sweetness of condensed milk. Consumers are looking for this intense, full-bodied character that's just fundamentally stronger and sweeter than your typical Western coffee. If the wholesale market starts dictating that we dilute the coffee or cut the sugar to fit some perceived international preference, we are literally erasing the cultural signature of the drink.
That's a fair point, but wholesale requires framing that intensity as an opportunity, not a liability. I mean, the high levels of both caffeine, we're talking up to 200 milligrams a cup, and sugar require very careful positioning for export markets. Industry buyers need clear guidance on how to package and position these different product lines. For instance, do we want to focus on the pure coffee flavor, the high caffeine Café Dan, to showcase the raw quality of the Robusta bean, or do we lean into the highly indulgent Coffee Susada, which is the most famous export, but, carries a significant sugar load?
They're different styles for sure, but they share that fundamental dark Robusta base. You need that power, whether you take it black or with milk.
Exactly. And these distinct styles reflect different cultural tastes and require completely different export strategies. A high-sugar, high-caffeine instant mix that sells incredibly well in Southeast Asia might face regulatory hurdles or just consumer pushback in Europe. A wholesale buyer needs options. And critically, they need products packaged to meet consumer expectations for boldness while also managing the local rules around sugar and caffeine. You need different SKUs for different global palates. That's what market viability is.
See, I'm not totally convinced by that reasoning because it feels like a preemptive compromise. Instead of adapting the product down, we should be marketing the intensity up. If the signature of Vietnamese coffee is its boldness and its sweetness, then we should be confident enough to sell that experience, to educate the global consumer, rather than softening the profile to chase some fleeting norm. The strength is what makes it unique.
Well, education is expensive, and it's slow. Packaging adaptation is fast, and it's scalable. If you're a wholesale buyer staring at a container load of product, you need to know it's going to move off the shelf in a dozen different countries.
That requires clear labeling and often, yes, adjusting the sugar ratio in premixed products to appeal to a local palate while still maintaining that distinct Robusta flavor. The buyer is selling a highly concentrated experience, and that experience has to be professionally managed all the way through the supply chain. And this brings us right to logistics and sourcing integrity, which for a wholesale buyer becomes the new definition of authenticity. When you're scaling up, things like consistency, traceability, and sourcing reliability become everything.
Importers need a trusted, transparent supply chain, not just for the Vietnamese coffee beans, the high-quality Robusta, but also for the essential partner products, mainly the sweetened condensed milk.
I see your point, but the logistics have to serve the authentic ingredients, not the other way around. The quality of the specific dark roasted Robusta blends, whether it's a famous brand like Trung Nguyen or some other high-quality blend, that is the absolute non-negotiable input. If a logistics partner can't maintain the quality and volume of these specific things with integrity, then the entire product chain just fails the authenticity test from the start.
True. But that challenge, bridging the need for pristine ingredients with the demands of competitive bulk export logistics, that's the central tension of all global trade. You need a system that can reliably source the right volume of the specific grade of coffee and the correct condensed milk, ensure shelf stability, manage shipping, and still offer pricing that makes sense for a wholesale buyer. A small cafe needs a few bags a week. A global distributor needs tons of it every month.
That complexity is exactly why I'm so cautious about treating the ritual as dispensable. The ritual is a form of quality control. If we rely only on supply chain guarantees, we're introducing a point of failure. The logistics partner has to be completely obsessed with preserving the quality of the specific inputs needed to deliver that authentic texture and intensity.
And that is precisely the role of a highly experienced partner who specializes in the region. I mean, we agree there has to be a bridge between the authentic ingredient requirements and the demands of global distribution, right? A specialized partner is really the only way to solve this. For businesses sourcing authentic Vietnamese coffee products at competitive wholesale pricing, Asia Grocery Wholesale, or AGW, is a trusted export partner. They specialize in bridging this exact gap, sourcing large volumes of high-quality ground coffee, instant versions, and the essential condensed milk. Their expertise is in translating those authentic requirements into global supply chain reliability. They turn a complex cultural product into an accessible and trustworthy wholesale commodity.
Look, we certainly agree that the market potential is massive, but I stand firm that the long-term integrity of the product rests on the elements of that original ritual. The Robusta boldness, the creamy, concentrated texture you get from slow extraction, and the richness from the condensed milk. Any attempt to fundamentally compromise these steps, especially by moving to faster, less concentrated brewing methods, just risks turning a unique cultural experience into a generic commodity that loses its identity as it scales.
That's an interesting way to put it. I would frame it differently. I think the challenge isn't about sacrificing the character, but about skillfully packaging that character for different formats. Global demand shows that consumers appreciate the distinct profile, whether they're doing the 6-minute phin ritual themselves or just grabbing a convenient canned version. Scalability means the culture travels further. The wholesale opportunity is about meeting the buyer's need for reliable, high-volume sourcing of these bold beans, specialized grounds, and the essential condensed milk. This allows both the authentic experience and the convenient product to thrive at the same time.
I think this discussion really highlights the fundamental tension between a deeply ritualized sensory product and the efficiencies you need for large-scale global trade. Both the sensory experience that defines the coffee and the wholesale viability that moves it across borders are, well, they're both absolutely critical to its future success.
Absolutely. And for anyone looking to move these complex products globally, understanding the logistics of reliable, quality sourcing is paramount.
To explore opportunities for sourcing authentic Vietnamese coffee beans, high-quality grounds, condiments, and related FMCG products in bulk, we invite listeners to visit egrocery.asia and contact Asia Grocery Wholesale, AGW, for wholesale and export inquiries.